You're listening to She's the Business podcast.
If you're a solopreneur in your business and you offer a service, then time is your most valuable resource because it's literally the one thing that you can use to create more income in your life. And maybe you don't want to be using your entire life working to earn that income. So that time that you spend in your business is so critical, which means that you don't want to be spending it on the tiny little tasks that take a few minutes here, a few minutes there, and all that mundane stuff. So today's episode is all about the top automations that a solopreneur should really be looking at in your business to remove manual time, remove the unbillable hours that you're spending, where you can turn that into either billable time or maybe free time to go and spend with your family. So stay tuned, it's coming right up.
Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Osborne, and in my 23 years of business and marketing, I've built many brands to become multi-billion-dollar companies. And just in the last 10 years, I've built 2 online businesses of my own from my dining room table with 2 little babies running around at my feet. I've made it my mission to inspire you to get out of your own way and become the successful business owner who's living the lifestyle you really desire without all the hustle. This is She's the Business podcast, made by women for women. This is your weekly dose of motivation and inspiration.
Did you know that successful entrepreneurs don't think the way most people do? In fact, they think the opposite. They challenge the status quo. They don't ask for permission and they work on the hard things instead of working hard. Now, my coach and mentor, James Wedmore, is a very well-known 8-figure entrepreneur in the online space. So if anyone should know about this, then he should, right? Well, James has written a short book called Hardwired for Entrepreneurship. And that gives you an inside look at how successful entrepreneurs actually think about starting, growing, and running a business. Because what you think about business determines what's possible for you. Now, you can get this ebook today absolutely free. Follow the link in the caption below and download either your ebook copy if you like to read or an audio version if you prefer to listen. You can get both on the link in the show notes or in the caption below. If you're watching on your phone, you can just scroll down and grab that right there and then. And yeah, have a look. See what you might learn about yourself, what you might change suddenly to think differently that could have a huge impact on your business success. So enjoy. I hope you love it as much as I did. My very special guest today is Michelle Teo. She has been a freelancer for many, many years, or a freelance business owner, I think we'll say, where she provides services to others in business. And she is now the Chief Marketing Officer of Rounded, a really unique platform for accounting and finance management that's been designed specifically for the solopreneur or the freelancer. And she's Australian, but you're also going to hear she actually lives and works all around the world. Now, Michelle is one of those people who clearly loves her tech, and she shares with us in this episode some technology that she uses to reduce the time that she's spending that's not on specific client work, really taking away so many things that zap our time without us even realizing. Like, how often does it happen to you where all of a sudden, an hour's gone by and you think, well, what did I even achieve in that? You may be doing some admin work or trying to go back and find something that you've discussed in a meeting. Well, Michelle has got some great tips for us, a few that I've noted down because I'm going to go and check them out for my own business. Without further ado, let me play this interview for you. Okay, and I'm here with Michelle Teo, who is the CMO of Rounded. Thank you so much for joining me today, Michelle.
Hey, Jessica. Yeah, lovely to be here.
Yeah, amazing. Now, could you give us a quick 1-minute intro as to what is who is Rounded? Who do you serve? What are you there to do?
Yeah, definitely. So Rounded is the easiest accounting and invoicing app that's actually made for Australian freelancers and sole traders. So I'm the CMO, and I was actually a user and a freelancer for many years. So I love the product so much, and yeah, I'm really
Amazing.
excited to talk to you about it.
Oh, that's awesome. So it's an accounting app and specifically for Australians, but we were just talking before we got on here, you are in Paris, which is really cool. I love Paris, one of my favorite cities.
Yeah.
So you guys are over there, or you work remotely, and is Rounded
Yes.
like focused just on the Australian market so that it makes it easier for GST and things like that? Or yeah, tell me a bit
Yeah,
more about it.
exactly right. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly right. Well, technically, Rounded can be used by anyone around the world, but they are really focused on Australia in the sense that they've got all the Australian things in there, like GST. But
Mm-hmm.
one of the wonderful things about being a freelancer or working remotely is that you can be anywhere. So I've actually lived in Paris for the last 3 years.
Yeah, oh, amazing. Living the dream for sure. I think
Yeah.
so many people
Oh,
would love to be there.
it's quite funny because actually a lot of people that work with Rounded, they were actually users and they were actually freelancers and we're all kind of spread out throughout the world. So Liam's a permanent digital nomad. I never know whether he's in New York or Mexico, and we've got people in Morocco and some people in Australia. So it's really flexible, which is what I really love about the freelance lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you are freelancing, obviously being flexible and time is so important. And that's probably why this is such a great topic for us to get into today, is all about automations and why automations are so important for solopreneurs. Because, when it is just you, which I'm sure you can
Yeah,
tell us a bit more about that life when it's freelancing, you're like every minute counts, right? You're kind of on the clock
exactly.
trying to do the client work. And if you're not being paid for those minutes, then that's sort of time that's really wasted. So, yeah, what
Exactly
is
right.
tell me a bit more about it. Like, what is your take on automation? Like, and even what is automation? Because I know it's a word that we talk about so much. Everyone's like, automation. But let's even start with what you would consider to be an automation in the first place.
That's such a great question. So, automation for me really is basically leveraging technology or software to do something that I would have done manually, but technology can do for me in a fraction of the time that so I can spend my time doing better things.
Yeah, amazing. And why do you think, like, I guess some people get that whole friction, I'm going to say,
Yeah.
people get the
Yeah.
friction of like, I could spend some time setting up this technology, but it's just so much
Uh-huh.
faster if I just keep doing it the way that I'm doing. So,
Uh-huh.
what would you say
Yeah.
to like, why is automation? Why should we be looking at technology? And what are some of the things to look out for? Like, I guess, so why should we do it? And when we're looking at doing it, what do you think you want to be aiming for? And what do you want to avoid when you're looking at implementing
Yeah.
automation?
Definitely. Well, maybe I'll talk about it from a personal perspective because it's a bit easier to understand when you can put it in context.
Yes.
And technically, I guess I still am a freelancer or solo business owner, have been for many years now, for like the last 8 years of my life. And when you are a freelancer or a solo business owner, actually, when you are a freelancer, you own your own business. So I'd like to meld the two together because a lot of freelancers don't see themselves that way, but it's the truth. You're a solo business owner.
You are.
You do everything yourself. You have to create the invoices, you have to know what expenses you're doing, you write your own copy, you create your own website and so on. And there's just so many things to handle. And you have to store like 50 contacts in your head and remember to respond to a gazillion people. So there's so many things you have to do. And so one day I sat down and I realized and thought, well, actually, if I invest like 4 hours upfront automating this particular task by getting software to do it for me, it's probably going to save me like 60 or 80 hours this year. And that 60 to 80 hours I could bill for client time. So when you actually look at the return on investment, I firmly believe in the power of automation. And I want to kind of take this like airy fairy concept of automation into really tangible things. So let me kind of break down a couple of my favorite things that I think every solo business owner should automate. The first thing is if you're posting social media content, one thing I really love to do is to create it at one go and batch it 1 month at a time, and just to have it automatically posted through some sort of social media scheduling software such as Buffer, or you can just post it automatically through LinkedIn. That's really great, because that means every 6 p.m. I don't have to manually post myself. And that takes a lot of time if you were to manually do that all the time. So that's one of my favorite examples. And another one, of course, is creating invoices manually. I think that's the worst waste of time. And then even more so, like when clients don't pay you, forget to pay you, or there's like an overdue invoice, which I'm sure everyone can relate to, having to remember that and store that in your head and having that mental overload is not a good use of your time. So you can actually use software and software like Rounded to just automate that. They can automatically see, okay, this invoice was due in 14 days, that hasn't been paid, and it can automatically send out a reminder reminding them to pay. So it takes that burden off you, and then the software can remind you if they really haven't paid in 2 more weeks to really chase up after them. So these are some things that I really firmly believe in doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just a matter of kind of setting those processes in place, right? Of like, well, this is how I want it to work and when I want the reminders to go out. And does the software know when the payment has been made? So it's updating it in the system.
Exactly.
And and so
yes.
it's kind of doing all of that chasing for you, which I think is probably something people not only just don't like to do because of time, but actually don't like to do because it feels really awkward. Like, hey, you haven't paid me. That is definitely one to take off your plate. Like, why even have that as something that you need to do? I think that's so, really clever. Now, another thing, I'm a massive one around payments, actually, and that was one of the first things in my business that I was like, I do not want to spend any time chasing invoices, noting down payments coming in, all of that. I was like, oh, you could, kill me now. I would rather stick pins in my eyes than do it. So for me, like, I did something, I guess, that maybe a lot of freelancers can't do, and that's actually to take upfront payments. So it's like payment happens at the beginning, and I don't do any of that invoicing or chasing up because they pay before when they sign up. So that kind of eradicated a lot of it. But there are times where there is an invoice that goes out and things like that. And I think it's, or someone wants to pay on a payment plan. So, I think that there's so many different ways you can look at, well, how can you automate the process of payments? And I'd be interested to hear your views with, a typical freelancer type business. Are there ways that you can even automate where there are multiple payments that the client's going to have, so that it's sort of you set it up once, even if it's customized for that client, because maybe you've done a special quote for them, but you set it up and then that's the payment schedule and the technology then does it all for you. Oh,
exactly.
Amazing.
Set and forget. It's the motto. So one thing that's really common with freelancers is that they take an upfront deposit. And so I love the fact you can take it all upfront, and I wish everyone could work that way. But I think the reality for most freelancers is they probably don't have the ability, or they don't, maybe the price point, the transaction size is just far too large to take upfront. So typically they take a deposit, and Rounded is actually specifically made for these use cases for freelancers to use. So you can have this automated, like you'll send the invoice, the deposit is taken up front, and then it'll automatically remind the customer in 30 days when the project deliverable is done that the rest is due. And the manual work that has to be done in taking a deposit and doing one invoice here and then remembering to do it at the end for the deliverable is a little bit annoying. So I really love the fact that you can automate that. And for me personally, I like to bill clients on a monthly recurring basis. And the way that I do it is I actually just set an automated invoice that's just recurring, and it just automatically gets sent out every month on the same day, and the clients know it's coming. I know it's going to be sent. I can automatically have that sent to my inbox as well. And if any payments overdue, then the reminder is sent to me. But it's really, really great because this way I don't have, if I've got 15 clients at one time, I don't have to remember to send an invoice 15 days of the month.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's that, needing to remember and sitting down to do it, where so many people think, oh, but I've got this deadline, or I've got something urgent that I'm doing, or maybe it's even your life, like you've got kids, something's happening. And it's like, I need to sit down and do all that invoicing. But if you don't have to do that and you can get paid in your business without it, how much more valuable is that time to get that time back and be able to actually be doing those things that you need to do? Now, I have a question for you, because I also love the monthly payment, and that is actually how some of my clients prefer to pay, rather than the whole amount up front. They might split it out over a payment plan. So I might say, right, you can have over 3 months or over 6 months. But the thing is, I guess this is the difference, is they don't actually need to do anything either, aside from the very first sign up, payment details in, and then agreeing to this payment plan. And then the way my business works is the whole thing is automated. So it literally automates taking the payment out as well as them getting the invoice. So for me, I was looking at, well, how can I reduce my time? But I also really love ways where I reduce my clients' time and make life easier on them, and actually automate the things that they're required to do, so it's not then becoming a chore for them as well. Do you see, does Rounded offer that type of capability where you can have automated payments as well as just the invoice going out? And do you tend to, do people use it, or do they tend to want people to pay manually?
Yeah, no, that's a really, really great question. So one thing Rounded does is that it allows payment in many forms. So as freelancers, normally you don't have the capability to take payments by card or credit. And you have to ask for a bank transfer, and everyone knows a bank transfer is a pain in the ass because you have to enter in, your client has to go in and enter 10 digits, double check that it's correct, and so on. So one thing Rounded's really useful for is that it allows you to get paid faster, because the client can just enter in their card details, save that in the system, and have that recurring as they go. Or another thing that some of my clients like to do is they just actually automate the bank transfer. And so as soon as it hits the my bank account, Rounded can actually detect that it's coming in, and all I have to do is click oh, it's arrived, and the invoice has been paid. And then what Rounded will do is that will it has a dashboard, and it shows me all the money that's actually come in for the month, so I can visually keep track as well.
Yes, yeah. Oh, that's so handy. And I think that just makes it really useful for people, that you can easily set up those payments to come out just at the beginning, and it's sort of, unless something happens, you need to go in and change it, it can all just happen without you needing to go in and do it again, which I think
definitely,
that's what.
Yeah, removing friction for clients to pay is, I think, one of the number one things that freelancers and any solo business owners need to do, because as you know, getting payments is one of the most critical, but annoying, awkward parts of the job.
Yes, make it easy for them to pay you and make it easy to get paid. Oh my goodness.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. So we've covered social media and invoicing. What about the other top automations that you think solopreneurs should be looking into?
I've got so many.
Give me your top 3 more.
Yeah, let me do something. Okay, so obviously everyone's talking about ChatGPT at the moment, and I don't know how everyone feels about it. But for me, some of my work, I'm a content writer, I'm a copywriter, I do conversion copywriting. I actually love ChatGPT because I think it makes my workflow so much smoother and so much faster, and really helps me in that. So I actually leverage multiple AI copywriting softwares, and I don't use it to write it for me. But sometimes, when you're in a bit of a creative rut, and you need 20 ideas at the moment, but you're like, oh, I just can't think. So one of my favorite softwares, it's called Writer. It can generate copy based upon different moods, so you can be assertive, awestruck, candid, humorous, inspirational, critical. It can generate copy based on the inputs that you give it. and spit out copy based on these different emotional moods that you ask it to. And it really helps jog my creativity. I'm like, oh yeah, I can do this and that. And it makes the creative process a lot faster so I can get to my end deliverable. So that's one of my favorite automations in a creative process.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Yeah, and I don't know how many people are into SEO out there, and this is very nitty gritty, but the technical SEO of your website, it's not fun. It's very like, eh. So I have a software called Labrica, and it actually scans your website and then actually tells you like everything that can be done to automate. So not automate. So everything that technically can be done to help your site score better for SEO rankings from a technical perspective, like, oh, you've got duplicate content here, you've got no SEO meta tags here. And so it just lines them up and then it orders them in order of criticalness for the algorithm. Because like I don't have time to learn about all the things in the SEO algorithm. And I don't have time to keep up with it because it changes all the time. And so the software does it for me. And then it says, well, actually, this is really important and this is not that important, or this will really hurt your score. So you've got 5 minutes today. Make sure you do this one thing. So I run that software. Yeah, I run that software for myself and my clients about every 6 months or a year. And yeah, it really saves a lot of time. Otherwise, you would have to hire a person, an actual human, to go and audit your website for like multiple hours, and then they would have to like sit and figure out the algorithm rules. So yeah, that's another one of my favorite things.
Amazing. What was the name of that software again? If anyone didn't
Labrica.
Labrica.
Yeah,
okay.
Labrika. Yeah, I researched that quite a bit before I got that one. I'm very happy with that purchase.
Oh, that sounds like a really good one because, I think it's just sort of knowing what to address and what to attack. You know, when you go in and you're like, right, I want to get more people finding my website. What do I need to do? And there's so many different things you could do. I think that just actually having that hit list of like these are the most critical. That was a really good one because I use the Google page speed insights, and that always, lets you know about images that are too large and all of those kind of things, which the speed is obviously really important for SEO. So I like to run that test, but this is a new one. I'm going to have to go and check it out. So thank you for the recommendation.
Awesome. No worries.
Yeah. All right. What else have you got for us?
Oh, actually, this is another one of my favorites. So there are so many times when I'm in a client meeting and I'm like, oh my God, that is super important. And I forget what they said the minute after. And I'm like, oh crap, I didn't write that down. So I have recently, for the last 4 months, and I am loving it, embraced AI note-taking software. So it records the meeting and then it officially transcribes the meeting. And that is important because you can go back and search your transcripts. So if I'm like, oh, did John say 441 of these tasks need to be done or 330, I can like go in and search and find that number really, really quickly. So I don't have to go back to the client and say, oh, sorry, what did you say there? So it's really great. And it also automatically summarizes the meeting. So it allows me to give a really strong recap to the client about what we talked about and the next set of action items.
Wow, that's really great. And so what does this one work with? Like, are you doing meetings over Zoom or is it on your phone if you're in a face-to-face meeting? Like, how does it actually work?
Yeah, so it's called Fireflies AI, and it can basically connect into any meeting like Google, Zoom, phone, iPad, whatever. Like you can actually give it rules. So you can say, okay, if it's going to be with this client or if I'm using this email, automatically join and automatically record. And then you can say automatically send all participants the transcript and the summary of the meeting if you want to do it that way as well. So that's one of my favorites. But I have heard there's another software in the market, I think called like TLDV or something, and it's got this feature that I am so into. Like when you're in the heat of the meeting and you're like, oh my God, they just popped out an absolute nugget of wisdom and I need to remember that. But 30 minutes after the conversation has passed, you're like, I have no idea what they said. Cannot remember. You've got this like vague memory at the back of your head. Apparently this software, it's another AI note-taking software, allows you to like actually flag that during the meeting. So when you get the transcript, it was like, pay attention to like this timestamp and it can send you a reminder. So I'm looking into
Ah.
that one too. I might actually do a switch.
I love it. Wow, that sounds really great. Yeah, I think there are so many moments like that, aren't there, where you think there was something amazing. And even when I've got it recorded, it's still like, well, am I going to sit there and actually go all the way through and find what that little
Yeah.
nugget was that somebody said? That sounds amazing, especially if you can timestamp it to be like, okay, it was at exactly this time, then you don't have to really go and hunt much for it because you're going to go straight to the time, which sounds brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah,
Ah,
and a lot of these software have free versions. So,
mhm.
it's very easy to implement. And then for me, I think I pay $15 for my note-taking software and a month. And it's for me, it's well worth it because the time I would have spent manually taking notes and manually
Mm.
doing summaries would be hours every month. And when I look at what I'm billing out for my time, it makes so much sense to have this automated.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I know you touched on it earlier, but I think it's really important because so many solopreneurs that I've worked with, and, especially people who've started as a freelancer, really view their time as an hourly rate. And then they also think if they're spending on any technology, that it's taking away from their earnings, basically. They kind of view it as, well, that means I'm getting less because now I'm paying for all of these different softwares. But
Mhm.
what you just shared was, well, it might cost $15 a month to have this software, but how much time are you actually going to save? And in that time that you've saved, what is that time worth? Like if you're billing your time at, 60, 100, whatever, $200 an hour, then
Exactly.
that time that you get
Don't
back
be
is
doing
worth
this
so much
stuff.
more than $15 a
Exactly.
month, right? It's worth like
Exactly.
way, way, way more. So,
Exactly. And one thing I've really found is that some people are like, oh, but it only takes 2 minutes. It only takes 2 minutes here and there. And when you are a solo business owner, it is not just 2 minutes. And I'll tell you why. It's because as a solo business owner and a freelancer, you need to do deep work. You need to
mm,
really get stuck into it. You need these periods where you can just be really creative. You can just get into strategy. You can just think, how am I really going to grow my business? Is this really aligned with what I want to be doing? And you can't get into this deep work day in, day out if you have to break your concentration and do these mundane, repetitive admin tasks here and there for 2 minutes every day. So
mm.
that's another really big reason I really believe in automation. I think it allows you to do these value adding tasks, which I think are even more important than what you're billing out to a client at like $60 or $100 or $200. It's the direction of your business, and for me, that's like $1,000 an hour task because at the end
Yes.
of the day, this is where you're going.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly it. And it's so important because you do need to be having that time. And, I guess when you are charging out your time as a freelancer, it's normally you're getting paid for the time you're putting in. Then you're thinking, well, any time I'm not spending on client work is like non-paid time, it's unbillable time. And they always want to reduce it. But it's like, well, actually, yes, let's reduce it from taking away these little 2-minute tasks because they add up. Like 2 minutes here, 2 minutes there, they all add up to a lot of minutes. That could
Hmm.
be so much, even if you're not then using it for billable time. What if you're using it for strategic time to actually think, what could I do for my strategy in my business so I could attract better clients, so I can actually be getting the $200 an hour jobs instead of the $60 an
Exactly.
hour jobs. Like you do need
Yeah.
that time to think about your business. Like you say, that is $1,000 an hour task, is that your own business strategy, and to give yourself the time to do it, because so many just find that that's it. It's always like, I want to do that. I want to sit down and think about that. But you're not, because every day you've got a list of things that you need to get done. You've got deadlines, you've got client work, and you're just doing, doing,
Yeah.
doing. And I think it's when you've got to that point where you realize you're at that capacity where you have no extra time to fit in, and you may be
Hmm.
working even more than what you want to, then,
Hmm.
this is the time to think, well, I need to either get rid of some things, I need to automate, or I need to delegate. And, that's the other one that most
Exactly.
solopreneurs don't want to do. They don't want to hire someone or don't want
Delegate.
to delegate it. But, it's like you've got to shift that off your plate, because otherwise you're just stuck, you're here at the status quo. And if that's all you want, then
Mm-hmm.
that's probably fine. But I think most people say, well, no, I'm working too many hours. I'm not earning what I want to earn.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, something
Mm-hmm.
needs to shift, right? And needs
Exactly,
automation.
exactly right. Yeah, I actually believe, though, in this day and age, that solo business owners, solopreneurs, freelancers, we can get so much further than 10, 15, and 20 years ago, because there are so many things that we can now do on our own that we don't have to hire another person
Yeah.
for. Like back in the day, you would have had to hire someone to do your invoicing and your accounting and like looking into your expenses. Now, all these things can be completely automated, or like a personal assistant to remind you of things. Like for me, I love just putting reminders in Slack that will automatically remind me of something on a day if I need to send something through, things like that. So I think the potential of how far you can grow your business as a solo business owner has really just exploded in the last 5, 10 years. And I think that back in the day, maybe being a freelancer, I feel like in Australia it's not perceived very well. It's like, oh, so you couldn't get a real job type of thing. And I really I really don't believe that's true. Or like, oh, you're just a solo business owner. You don't have like 50 employees. And it's like, actually in today's age, you can make six figures, mid six figures, and there
Easy.
are actually easy, and there are a growing number of like $1 million solo business owners out there. And that's all made possible through embracing automation, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're so right. There has been a huge shift. And part of it is even just in how you think about it yourself. Like you've said multiple times, freelance is actually a solo business owner. You do own your own business. You're not just someone's employee. And so the moment that you really step into that and own it and be thinking, well, what can I do to make my business smarter so that it works more for me? So that you actually achieve the reason that you probably are freelancing in the first place is because you want flexibility, you want freedom. And you can't have that freedom
Exactly.
if you need to work a 60-hour week just to make the bills, and a little bit of money to live on. Well, that's not freedom and flexibility. That's just like you've created a job for yourself with multiple bosses.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's a really hard balancing act, but I think when you get it right, I do feel like being a solo business owner and being a freelancer is, for me personally, far more rewarding than being in corporate and not having that flexibility. Like when I look at my personal situation and the flexibility that freelancing and having my own business has given me, I have lived and worked in so many different countries because I could simply just take my laptop and move. Like I lived and worked in New York for multiple years. I'm living in Paris right now. I'm like, oh, okay, the Barbados is a cool digital nomad visa. I could go there if I wanted. And it really allows you to have this incredible flexibility that you wouldn't have. And when you've been in the game for a couple of years and you've built your profile, you do get to this stage after you've put the work in where you can kind of determine your hours a lot more. I think at the start, there's no way around it. Like nothing comes on a silver platter for free in life. You do have to do the work. But when you do the work and when you put that dedication and discipline in, I think you can really build the life that you want, and you have the power to design exactly how you want your life to be and to actually live it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like no one else needs to tell you when to work, how to work, or anything. Like you can
Exactly.
actually just create it for yourself. And I love that as well. I think I spent far too many years in a corporate job. Not that I loved it. I had a great time, but I can see now looking back, so many of the frustrations. I think it was like I just want to do what I can see the potential for, and I don't want everyone else's limited views to be coming down and telling me, we've got to do this, what's really
Exactly.
mundane and boring. So yeah, for me, it's
Yeah.
definitely so much about freedom and flexibility and, just being able to live where you want to live, being able to work the hours that you want to work. And that's
Hmm.
why technology, like we're so lucky to live in this age where we've got technology that now can do things that people used to have to do. And it's just sort of knowing what to
Exactly.
leverage and what are the ones
Hmm.
that are really good ones, because I think there's a lot out there that are also time wasters. So
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. No, I
there's
think you're dead on there. Like, I think that there's definitely a lot of things where you're like, okay, I've put in this process and I've put in this system, but it's not really saving me time. So I
Mhm.
think it is worth thinking through what actually would save you time. And for me, I think for every solo business owner, I think it's invoicing, accounting, expenses. Like, don't manually calculate your GST. Don't manually calculate how much tax you're going to have to owe at the end of the year. Have that automated. Make it easy for your clients to pay you in 10 different ways. Offer multi-currency, something else that Router does. And make
Yep.
sure that all your workflows that you often touch, basically understand what things you do all the time that's super mundane, super repetitive, that, in this day and age, you're pretty sure technology could do that for you. And I think that's the trick. Like, don't go and automate things that don't need to be automated. If you don't do them often, automate things that need to be done all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Those things that you're really spending a lot of time on, definitely a good one. And to add in one that I found really handy was sometimes you get two systems and they don't necessarily talk to each other. So there's a bit of that
Yeah.
manual bit between them. So one of my favorite tools being Zapier, because it can kind of glue two things together and make them talk to each other, and you don't have to do that bit in the middle, which is awesome.
Love it. Yeah,
So,
definitely. That's like, I think that's like second level automation when you've got Zapier and you're like, all right, everything just works smoothly and I don't have to lift a finger.
yeah, I mean, and that's the whole thing, is there's so many options out there. You've shared some really, really great ones. And even I think, another one for freelancers, potentially they're not already doing it. I think this would be like, if you're not, maybe you're new and haven't heard about it, because most people will be like, well, we do this already. But it's automating your meetings. So meeting bookings, I think for
Oh,
me,
100%.
Calendly was one of the very
Calendly,
first ones
yeah.
I got. And
Yeah.
it's like, it just saves you
And you can
so
get
much time.
exactly. And you can get Calendly for free. They have a free
Hmm.
tier. So that's just a no-brainer for me. Just like, don't spend time asking your client, oh, are you free on Thursday afternoon at 4 p.m. or like, and all these things. Like, just
Yeah.
send Calendly, let them book it. So
Let them
that's,
book it in themselves. Yeah. And that's so
yeah,
good. And, we're going really kind of meta here with the layers, but you can also then automate something in from Calendly into Slack or into another tool that you might use to manage, or Asana, if you use Asana to manage your projects, or Trello. So much can actually be transferred. That means, again, you're not doing that project management side in the back end. So,
exactly.
I love the tech. The tech is something that, as an online business owner, you've got to embrace it, because there's so much
You
that's out
have
there,
to.
and it's actually not complicated. That's the best thing. It's so much easier than
Yeah.
what you think it's going to be. Do you have any final, like, nugget to share with us about what you think, a solopreneur who's afraid of the tech, what would be like the first step
Yeah.
to get in there and do?
100%. I totally feel and understand that. Like, I didn't used to be a very tech person. I would switch on the TV and be like, "Oh, Foxtel's not showing back in the day. How do I make it work?" And so I totally understand people's hesitations towards this, but in this day and age, I think so many companies have invested in making their software so easy to use that there's not really a learning curve around it. There's so many things where it's very intuitive and the customer and user experience is just very smooth,
Mm,
very seamless. And I know that it may seem very, very daunting, but literally their entire teams at these software companies dedicated to making it super easy for you to use. So obviously you adopt their product. So I
yeah.
think that when you're using great products, it makes your life easier. The learning curve is not steep at all, like max, maybe a few hours, maybe a couple of days to get used to it. But for me, using something like Calendly, like I had to spend an hour just looking through at how many things it could really do for me. And then I was fully set up. I think that's really key. And look, there are lots of softwares out there which are complicated to use. And my key advice is just don't use them.
Yeah.
Don't use them if it's going to make your life more difficult, if you're going to feel dread having to use it. So one thing that Rounded is really optimized for has been really easy to use. And I know there's lots of accounting software out there like Xero and FreshBooks and QuickBooks and so on. But I think when you're running a full business with 20 employees and you need payroll and superannuation, these softwares are really, really great to use. But when you're a solo business owner, you don't need half those features. It's kind of overcomplicating a lot of things. And one thing that Rounded is really optimized for is being made for solo business owners, that it's just what you need. It's super easy to use, very little learning curve involved. And it just makes you like, you just don't have that dread to use it. And so, yeah, if something is super hard to use, just my motto is just don't use it. Because at the end of the day, you need to psychologically feel like everything's easy.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's such a good one. And, for sure, the finances, when you're starting out, hopefully you are getting clients right from the beginning, and just getting into a really great place to manage the finances right from day one, I think is so sensible, because it is such a big admin task that no one ever wants to do. And so don't let it get out of control and stop with the spreadsheets. Like, oh my goodness, so difficult. And just, time consuming to use spreadsheets when you don't have to, when, it can actually be automated. I love the fact that, when transactions come into my bank account, they appear in the software. It's like it's already done and it's already in there. The expenses are there, the income is there. I'm like, oh, it's so much
it's
easy,
a relief.
I do not want to go through and be categorizing them all and, typing them all in, because that just takes far too much time. So, yes.
Yeah. And your time is far too valuable for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thank you so much for sharing all of that today, Michelle. There's been so many nuggets with some new tech I have not heard of as well. And I like to think I'm fairly tech savvy, so I'm going to have to go and look them up and get into having a little trial out of those ones, especially with the note taking. It's really cool. And
you have to let me know how you find it. I'm always curious to hear how everyone else is using it, in case I learn something new there too.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you. And do you have, so if people want to sort of find out a bit more about Rounded or connect, like where's the best place for them to get in touch with you and learn more?
Yeah, you can just hop onto the website, rounded.com. And yeah, we've actually got live chat support with real wonderful humans. So if you've got any questions, just ask them a question, you'll get a real answer.
Oh, wow, that's great. Thank you. I will make sure that link is in the show notes so you can go and check out Rounded. It does sound like a really nice, easy, just platform to use and not too complicated, which, I think there are so many different ones out there. And when you're a large company, you need lots of features. And when you're a solo, you actually don't need all of these big features. So it's just making our life easier to have something that's really designed for us. So thank you.
Yeah, wonderful.
Oh, thank you so much for your time. I've really appreciated you joining me on the podcast today, and we'll have to catch up soon.
Of course, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Hey, so just after we finished recording, Michelle shared with me that she was willing to give listeners of She's a Business podcast an extended free trial of Rounded if this is something that you feel is the right fit for your business. So it's right for you if you are in Australia or New Zealand, primarily because it's been designed to work with our particular GST system that we have here and really take all the thinking and all the hard work out of it for you. It's designed for you if you are a solopreneur, a freelancer, someone who's primarily running your own business and working in it. And it's really been designed for that simplicity. Like, you don't need all of these features that larger companies have. So this Rounded product is so simple and easy for you to use, which is amazing. Now, normally you can get a 13 or 14-day free trial on the Rounded website if you sign up there, but she has given me a special link just for you guys here on the podcast. I'm so excited to offer this to you, and it's a 30-day free trial. So to get your free trial, all you need to do is jump down into the show notes or the caption below here Click on that link and you'll go through to a special page on the Rounded website that you'll see She's a Business podcast, and just sign up. It costs nothing. You do not even need to put your credit card details down. You can just sign up for free for 30 days and give it a whirl. See how you like it. Do you like it? Is it making your life easy? Do you want to continue? I love everything that makes my life easy. So I encourage you to go ahead and give it a go if this sounds like a good fit for you. Thank you.